Hi, welcome to the Career Corner. My name is Heather Swift and I'm delighted to be your host. The purpose of the Career Corner is to help people move from career distress to career success. Our guest today is Mr. Jerry Masin, president of SETfocus, an IT school here in Parsippany, New Jersey. Jerry, welcome to the Career Corner.
Thank you, Heather.
So how does one go about setting up an IT school?
Well, we established SETfocus 14 years ago on the premise that everybody has the right to a good education, and as importantly, everybody has the right to a good job. We believe that education is an end to itself that leads to an outcome, which is a job. So it was based on those beliefs that we formed SETfocus.
And what is your main goal? Is it all technology based?
Yes, we are a software development training organization. We have 4 degree tracks, non-degree tracks I should say, .NET, which is a programming language, SQL Server, which is a database, Business Intelligence, which is data warehousing, and SharePoint, which is collaborative document sharing and online communications.
So now I remember the days where I had relatives who were really proud that they knew mainframe.
Right.
So what are you doing with the people that are a couple decades ahead of us that were the forefathers and mothers of the mainframe, and how are you retraining them on more modern technologies to help place them into jobs?
Well, that's a great question, and we love talking with those folks. COBOL, VAX VMS, Power Builder, and those languages are not as relevant in today's market that is dominated by open source codes, which is .NET and Java. So we'd love to speak to those folks about reskilling and then repurposing their skills portfolio to get them good jobs. Even though I will tell you, I was speaking to a colleague last week that was searching for COBOL programmers.
Oh,
so
really?
if anybody's in your audience knows some COBOL programmers, I know how to get them a job.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah, very seriously.
Oh, wow. I guess they still have very old systems then.
Financial services companies have large mainframe applications that they just simply don't want to get rid of. So the large banks, quite frankly, have huge COBOL infrastructure. So I know of COBOL jobs. If you run across some, we can help them with that.
We always love job leads.
Right.
That's always good.
Absolutely.
So what is your background that brought you to a point where you decided there was a need and a niche for this?
Well, I have an interesting background, but what's most relevant to SETfocus is I was a CIO of a fairly large organization, $250 million insurance claims processing organization, and I led a global staff for both software development, enterprise infrastructure, database, software development at the testing level, and network management. So I've run large IT organizations. So that translates nice to running an IT school because I know what employers need from a marketplace perspective.
So when you talk about what employers need, how have you seen that change? And if I'm someone who is searching for a new job now, or let's say I'm thinking of breaking into technology or just updating my skills, what is the minimum suite that I should really feel very comfortable at operating at? Well,
it varies, and the technology environment, which is, by the way, a great environment, unemployment rates in IT are running at about 3%. As compared to 9.5% on a nationwide basis. So,
and that's a different trend, because for a while that we had an influx. I remember of people coming out of the IT with all the outsourcing to India.
Yes.
And things of that nature. So you've seen that change now?
We're reversing that trend. As a matter of fact, we work with quite a few organizations that had once outsourced to Central Europe and Asia, India certainly, and are now bringing those functions back to the United States. I led a large development effort in Belarus, in the Ukraine, a few years back, and that organization has almost entirely repopulated back to the United States. So outsourcing is a move that's coming back to the United States. It's called co-sourcing or insourcing.
Oh, wow. So what is causing that?
Very simply, it's economics. The pay rates have gone up overseas, and they're going down here.
Everyone got word we can charge a lot more, right?
Exactly, exactly. And there's always been, the slight negative patina around outsourcing, and some legitimate and some not legitimate reasons, but it's really an economic issue. Companies can do software development or other traditional features or functions that have been outsourced as cheaply or as inexpensively in the United States as they can do it overseas. Now, if China gets into the mix, that's a whole different picture, and there's a lot of worry about that once they build up their infrastructure. But we work with a number of organizations that used to outsource and now hire in the United States.
Okay. So if we could talk back about people that are wanting to come to your school, Do you have any examples of people how they have retrained themselves, or maybe came from one area and were able to become tech savvy and an IT professional?
Sure. An IT professional is, or IT jobs are not necessarily the domain of IT professionals. So I'll give you an example about a software developer. A software developer, first of all, has to be creative, has to have very good problem-solving skills, has to be able to see patterns. For instance, I don't see patterns. I'm a very abstract person. So
You know
I
how
never,
to dress nicely, though. So
well, thank you. Yes, I try. And I made sure that I
There's
blended
no
in
plaid,
for... No,
yeah.
no, I didn't want to shine.
Yeah.
But you know, as far as the skill sets themselves, they need to have some math background, certainly some comfort around technology. One of the challenges that we find is when we're training software developers, so many are coming from Mac environments, they don't know the basic infrastructure of Windows.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Which is obviously foundational to .NET programming. But really what it comes down to is the ability then to translate someone's business need into a 0 and 1 environment. That is not necessarily domain to an IT professional. I'll give you an example. The best software developer that I ever managed was an administrative assistant without a college degree.
Really?
Yeah.
And what made her a rock star?
Well, first of all, she was very intuitive. She picked up and learned well. But most importantly, she was diligent. She was a great problem solver, and she could see patterns. Software is all about, software development and coding is about seeing patterns, translating a need to a specific set of computer functions. And you don't have to be an IT person to do that.
Okay. And did she end up joining an organization, or was she a part of a consultant that would go out, or what did she end up landing on?
She worked in my organization, which at that time was a company that built electronic foreign exchange trading platforms.
Oh, wow.
As a matter of fact, we had a software tester in that organization who actually tested the code that was a receptionist and was actually doing software testing. So the message that that Set Focus would like to to really get across is that we believe we can do something about creating and sustaining jobs for a larger encumbered, unemployed, or underskilled environment, and not necessarily because we're the best at it. We'd like to think we are, but because we believe people that are non-IT related can do good work in a sector where there's jobs.
Well, that's great. How has the current past years affected your ability to bring people to work that maybe are unemployed or underemployed in these areas? What kind of initiatives have you gone on?
Yeah, and that's a good question. One of we, like many businesses, have been beset by the economy over the last couple of years, largely because we're asking a potential student to make a very strong investment in their future, which comes with some real cost. That's offset by money that comes both from the state and federal levels, but still we're asking people to make an investment that they'll see a return on, which is the job. But when people are pressed from an economic standpoint, it becomes harder for them to make that buying decision.
And what is the typical age of your students?
Oh, it varies. I'd have to say that it probably isn't typical. We've seen people get from the gamut of right out of school right to relatively senior levels from both an age and business experience standpoint. So if I had to guess in terms of an average profile, you're probably looking in the late 30s to early 40s. Okay. But that's not necessarily germane to the nature of the work.
Are you finding that there are some younger people who the idea of going to college to learn, have to go through the sciences and the Englishes and everything is beyond what they want to do or love to do, when they know that they just love the computers and they love software and they're just dying to be able to make money instead of just playing on their tools to actually work for an organization? Do you have any younger people or parents that are supporting getting the education via your school as opposed to signing up for a 4-year or junior college where maybe they're wasting money on stuff that the kids really are not interested in?
That is the aha question of the evening.
Oh, yes.
And we are truly saying, and we're having some fascinating discussions around the state with higher education institutions, both at the county college level and at the 4-year level. There is a great movement developing that is speaking to the fact, do I need the 4-year degree? And does the certificate or the non-degree program that sort of speaks to what we do, is that becoming in some cases more relevant than the degree? And I believe that a foundational education is very important, so I'm not here to say that people should stop going to school and everybody show up at SetFocus's store, even though that would be kind of neat. But what I am saying that there's a logical tension, and speaking to some of the presidents of these schools about whether that degree is relevant. You know, our non-degree programs can get people jobs that are paying in some cases from a spread of like $40,000 to $120,000 a year, and not necessarily requiring a college education. So there's a real logical tension that's going on between degree and non-degree.
Yeah, well, everyone wants to protect their territory, and if they're feeling threatened, of course, they're going to raise a flag. Well, no, 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 it should be through our doors.
Yes.
But having been in career services for many years now, you know, the typical college is not for everybody. And these days, you know, we're finding that everyone is going and taking a step back to take the other person's job. So you have the late 20s taking the early 20 jobs, the early 20s, and college students are taking jobs that maybe high school kids could have once stretched for. Yeah. So we're kind of all colliding into this area where there's not a lot of extra. But if people, and young people especially, could find a niche through your school that really meets their needs and a nice income without having to, I hate to say, suffer through biology or just something just because it's a rote class that you have to check off. I've just been talking to some young people now that are a little dismayed about the 4-year process, and they're not doing what they want to be doing. So it does impact the workplace. You show up and you don't know anything. Yes. Whereas your school, I'm assuming you come out and you're ready to work.
Matter of fact, ready to work and have an organization that's behind you ready to get the job. That's that's one of the secret sources of what we do, is not only train, but we get the job, or we assist in getting the job. And 80% of our graduates over our 14 years have gotten jobs through our program. So that's an important thing. You know, you have, education has got to have an outcome. I fundamentally believe, as I said before, that education is an end to itself, but it's got to have some logical outcome, which is obviously the job.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I work with a high-end retail organization who said when they have buyers coming out of certain schools in the city, they don't know how to do the job. And we're talking about schools that are specializing in fashion, where they should be walking out, being able to enter right into a high-end store and know exactly what buyers do, exactly what the retailers are up to, how do the different positions work. But they're caught up in their curriculum instead of applicable business practices that they can hit the road running with. And it's a real source of frustration, because now my clients are having to retrain in how they want things done and how the job actually works.
Sure.
But why not combine those so people actually know what the heck the job actually is when they graduate?
Absolutely, that's a challenge.
So I've just been hearing some things like that. When we're going to be taking a break in a few moments, but I want us to start chatting about, you have a part of your school that is free, that helps people who are underemployed or unemployed to be able to get some training and get up to speed. Do you have a particular name for that program? Yeah,
it actually comes through our LinkedIn profile, and we refer to it as our free training site, and it's exactly that. There's no strings attached. We're inviting anybody that's interested in coming into the site and exposing them to a wide variety of free training initiatives. I'll give you one which we really think very strongly about. Our founder and chairman is an Excel guru. I was going to say jockey, but he's a guru.
I need to meet him.
So if you're really a Power Excel user, you know how to use pivot tables. And if you're really good at using pivot tables, you use Power Pivot Tables. So we have a free portion of that site that you can actually go in and learn how to use pivot and Power Pivot Tables in Excel, which is sort of the current trend in terms of using Excel.
Goodness. I think I need to adopt to that.
Sign in.
We're going to be taking a break for a moment. So when we come back, we'll be diving more into Jerry's school called SetFocus out of Parsippany, and we'll be back after this break.
In this economic downturn, libraries across New Jersey are reporting jumps in attendance of as much as 50% over the past year. Nearly 200,000 people use our computers every week.
Who'd have guessed that I'd be job hunting at my age? After spending several hours at home trying to upload my resume, I was just overwhelmed. My library showed me how to do it. Now I'm gaining back my confidence.
New Jersey libraries are transforming lives. Tell us your story.
Hi, welcome back to the Career Corner. My name is Heather Swift, and my guest today is Jerry Masin. Sorry, Jerry.
Raisin is good.
I was going to misname you.
No, that's fine.
He's president of SetFocus, which is an IT school here in Parsippany, and we're talking about his free training program. Can you please share a success story coming out of your program?
Well, we've had a couple. As an example, free training is intended to introduce people to a world of information that they might not have seen before, and in some cases had to buy. So, an example of a real interesting success story is a non-IT person that got into the site and was exposed to some information that, quite frankly, they never saw before. We get them into the system. We're able to then present a value proposition for why they'd want to buy into our program and then eventually find a job. As an example, what we love to see is people that are in career transition. We picked up one just the other day, a young lady that was a former programmer, is looking to find her way in the world. We were able to introduce her to our free training site, did some vetting of her background, and all things being equal, she's going to be a student in our program, hopefully in the next week or two.
Oh, that's great.
And free training is, and we're speaking at length with the Department of Labor in this state and hopefully in other states that we do business in. What we're trying to do is offer something to the marketplace. Again, as I said earlier, we feel very strongly that everybody deserves a good job and deserves a good education. And it's nice to say that, and that's great, and that's like mom and apple pie.
And most of us would agree to that. I think everyone should be working. There's pride in all different kinds of jobs,
That's right.
but what do we do about that?
And exactly. So our initiative is, what are we going to do about that? We could go back and say that it's great, or we can do something about it. So free training is eventually for us going to be our corporate landing page. When you come to see Set Focus for the first time, you'll be there. And we're inviting other learning and growth partners to join us in this. It doesn't necessarily have to be technology-based. It's a way to get people more educated, which leads to greater professional opportunities, and hopefully then it gets to that outcome, which is a job.
Well, I find that in all jobs, well, in most jobs, and I think that percentage is probably increasing, you have to have an awareness of computer operations. You have to have an awareness of social media. You have to be aware that this is out there. And maybe if you're Amish, you don't have to worry about it so much. But if you are working in New York City, even teachers now, where before they didn't have to worry as much, now they have to be aware of what's going on with cyberbullying and even on the negative sides of what social media can be doing. But to be able to operate a computer and know how to do PowerPoint and basics for slides, because the tools the teachers use keep being improved. It's no longer just putting up the little glossies, on the slide projectors and things like that.
Yes,
so if people want to think it's going away, it's not. No. So they might as well make it their friend. We have a woman in our office who has been very stubborn and becoming friends with email. And she would literally print out all of her emails and write her responses and have her assistant write back for her. So that's stopped now.
I would imagine.
But it was,
I would imagine.
She's killed more trees.
Yes.
I love her.
Yes.
But it's really, but she's in a different generation, and it's been slow time coming. And she's crazy successful.
Right.
But she's made big progress over the years. So
Good to hear.
I'm assuming that by going to your school, that those leaps and bounds probably happen a lot quicker because you have professionals teaching people on what to do and what not to do.
And interesting, on the software development side, there's a presumptive notion that because you write code, computer code, that you're a techie. What you find is that computer programmers are generally not. In some cases, they're actually very weak on what I would call basic computer infrastructure skills. So a good deal of our training is to bring people up in a Windows environment, how to properly move files from folders, and basically to how to operate in a GUI type environment, graphic user interface environment. And people would not think that, but that's one of the foundational skills to be a computer programmer. Is you have to, this is going to sound strange, you have to be able to use a computer.
Yeah,
so,
who knew?
Right, that's right, that's right. A help desk person is generally far more tech savvy than a computer programmer is.
Okay.
But again, that plays to one of our initiatives is we recognize that, and we recognize that to be a good computer programmer, you don't have to be a technology expert. You have to be able to see and form relationships, identify patterns, and then sort of get the translation of a business vision into some sort of programming code.
Now, part of your business at Set Focus is also a placement firm.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that, please?
Absolutely, and that is one of our great differentiators. There are many great training organizations, around the United States. One of the things that we have is we have a classically defined career services function, where we're actually speaking to the graduate, from the potential student, from the moment they enter into our system about where this is all going to end. So we're talking to them about their resume and their LinkedIn profile and how they're
good.
positioning themselves. So we're beginning that dress up of that potential student and then hopeful job candidate from day one. So again, it's marrying the professional message to the acumen that they pick up from our program, and that becomes a very powerful system that helps people get jobs. And we'd like to think that our success rate is because we've married those two systems together.
It sounds also like you're starting with the end in mind, almost.
Absolutely.
Of where do you want this to take you, and then help them accomplish those tasks to get to that goal.
Absolutely. It's always daunting looking for work, you know,
And depressing these days. It's very hard for
this
people.
This is a tough environment, but you know the message that I feel very strongly about is jobs are going to be there. If you position yourself with the right package that you communicate and the right skill portfolio, the job will be there. Maybe it's a little hard to get there, but hopefully the message of some optimism is keep at it, and the job will get to you.
And I think the people that are constantly improving themselves and looking for what can I do differently and better, and what to add to my resume. And even at Lee Hecht, we have some skills training, much more basic than yours are, but to get people more up to speed if they haven't had the opportunity to go to a school such as yours, or they've always been a little scared to start taking some skill self classes and just some basics to finally realize, okay, let me just dabble and figure out how can I get some new lines on my resume when it talks about software suites or something like that.
Absolutely. And I neglected to mention that one of those successes that we were talking about was a Lee Hecht transitional candidate
Hey,
coming through your system.
We have lots of great people coming through our doors.
It was wonderful, and that's
nice.
great. You know, one of the things that we're also focusing on, and you know, perhaps this is a little bit of a tip from a standpoint of what that resume should look like, something I feel very strongly about, and I do you know, pro bono coaching at the career transitional level, is the resume's got to speak to accomplishments just rather than a litany list of what you did. You know, back in when I got started, it used to be that resumes would show up via mail or a fax, and then somebody would have to read 500 resumes on their desk. And it was a challenge then because that was a bit of a lottery, and who got through the 500 resumes. Well, those resumes don't even show up anymore. They're collected through online computer portals, and they're keyword searched.
We've referred to that as the black
That's
hole.
right, and you don't know where it goes. And one of the things that I feel very strongly about is that resume's got to speak to your value proposition. All resumes have to be answering the question, so that. You're looking at me, so that. So that what?
I like that. You're the first guest I've had to say that. So you're looking at me so that ...
That's right.
I can help you do X, Y, Z.
And your resume has to be crafted to answer the so that equation. So if you list the standard resume is I did this, I did this, I did that. I'd rather see the resume as to why you were hired into the job, and then what did you accomplish based on the reason you were hired. That gives me the sense that there's something here rather than a litany list. So for those that are watching, I think that's a really important thing to distinguish yourself, and then to make sure that your resume matches your LinkedIn profile, and make sure that the message.
You're
has
not
to
president on LinkedIn and the bottle washer. On
that's
your
right.
actual resume.
And you know, I'm sure people have heard this before. If you're on Facebook, make sure that there isn't a picture of last night's kegger. You know, and I feel bad about saying that.
I just took mine down.
Well, there you go. I believe we should all have freedom of expression, and
but that comes with a price now. And at least let
price.
it be consistent with the brand that you have out there.
And it is the way it is. So, you know, and you could
use it to your advantage.
You could spend hours about whether the rationale of that, but, you know, Facebook should match LinkedIn, should match the resume, and it all should create a compelling message that answers, you're going to hire me so that. Get that down, you've got a great.
No, I
great
like
package.
that, and I think it's so important how we take care of our brands and build our brands, especially for young people, because they can so quickly ruin it. And I heard a story from a friend of ours at a financial services firm who had this young guy that wrote, nailed the interview, blah, 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 those idiots, just some disparaging comments. And he was one of the front runners, and they just took him right out of there because of his comments that he posted on Facebook.
Yes.
So they thought, let's just kind of Google him, let's see what comes up. And there he was, not speaking very nicely about the folks he had just met.
Right.
Or just, feeling a little too entitled and a little too special, that he aced the interview, was so easy, those kind of things.
Yeah.
And well, he did not get the job offer.
I am not surprised.
Yeah, and he didn't deserve it.
Yeah,
So he wasn't
absolutely.
very savvy. When looking at resumes, Are you finding a way that people are getting out of the black hole? We talk a lot about networking on the show with different guests, and through Lee Hecht and through the HR people I've brought on, that it's important to have that to represent you as well, not just only submitting a resume.
Right.
And with you being recruiters, I'm assuming you have contacts throughout New Jersey or different areas
Yes.
where you can help the top of the pile really get in front of folks in that way. Does that help the cause a lot more, I'm assuming?
Yeah, a fundamental skill set that someone as an early stage professional needs to get, in addition to having a good investment and retirement strategy, is you've got to get networking down from the beginning. And first of all, understanding what networking is. It's not a matter of going to a room and giving out a bunch of business cards and sending emails the next day and thinking that you did a great job. It's about establishing win-win relationships, so that, you know, the ideal state would be is get it done right and jobs will come to you rather than you having to go find the jobs. The job search strategy, if you're using job boards and that sort of business, will always be a lottery. And it was a lottery in the past, and it's a lottery now. You need to create other strategies so that the jobs will follow you or come to you based on relationships. Rather than just the simple sending out of a resume.
Yeah, no, and I think we have to use as many forces as possible.
Absolutely.
These days. So there is an age-old question that comes up, I think, and especially these days with technology improving and changing so quickly, when you have candidates that are new and fresh in their early 20s versus candidates 40s and later that are more experienced, who's getting the jobs? Is experience winning out over youth? Or is youth winning out over experience because they can be paid less, in the same issues why people are losing jobs to younger workers?
Both. For the organizations that are very price conscious, total cost of ownership, efficiency, effectiveness, it makes a whole lot of sense to hire the early stage professional, the entry level person. And much of it is based on rate either that you're paying or rate that you're billing out if you're on the consulting side. But where that continuum flips a bit is, particularly in technology, if you've developed domain experience, but also business acumen, there are organizations that need to merge that together. I was talking with a friend today that is going to be leading a large renovation of a financial services firm's infrastructure, very complex, using some advanced technology concepts like IDLE, which is information technology infrastructure libraries, and information technology service management, things that are really complex interrelationships between tech and business. You need to have some background to do that. That is not an entry-level set of skill sets. So I think it's both. The organizations that need the blend of business acumen and technology are going to hire the more seasoned professional, both in life experience and business experience. Where they're going at rate and they're going at cost, the entry-level person comes in. So I don't know necessarily that they're exclusive, but they hit different needs that a business might have.
The perfect blend sounds like a little bit of both.
Yes, and I'm a graduate of Rutgers College, and I was speaking at the Best Institute at Rutgers last week. And one thing that a technology person needs to nail is you got to understand the business.
That's great. No, you absolutely do. Well, we're just about out of time, so I wanted you to be able to give me what is your website address?
www.setfocus.com.
Great, and that is underneath our screen right now as we speak. So thank you so much for being on the Career Corner. It was great having you here. And please tune in next month when we have our next guest. And we're on YouTube, so check out our other videos under Career Corner at SOMA.tv. Until we meet again, I wish you much career success.